Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So a quick preview and prediction for Devin Haney versus Jorge Linares. This fight goes down on the 29th of May, so this weekend. And yeah, ultimately it's a fight I've been looking forward to for quite some time. More so on the side of Devin Haney. I see this as a significant step up from his previous competition. Well, you could argue that Jorge Linares is not the guy he once was, and that is true, but at the same time, I don't believe Linares is a completely shot fighter. I do believe he possesses some sort of danger, even at this stage. Obviously, recently he went to 140, and he got knocked out by Pablo Cesar Cano in one round, but when he moved back down, he fought Carlos Morales. Now, Carlos Morales gave Ryan Garcia a lot of problems a few years ago, and Linares completely took him apart and stopped him. Linares actually looked really good in that fight. So, again, while I'm not saying Linares is in his prime or as good as he once was, I still believe there's something left in the tank if we're going on his last fight. So, I do like this step up for Devin Haney. And yeah, all in all, I am looking forward to it. Let's briefly break down the tail of the tape, and we shall go from there. We shall start with the champion Devin Haney. He's got a perfect record of 25-0, 15 of those 25 wins coming by way of knockout. Jorge Linares has a record of 47 wins and 5 defeats, 29 of those 47 wins coming by way of knockout, and by the way, all of Jorge Linares' 5 defeats have been way of stoppage. Devin Haney is listed as 5'8" with a 71-inch reach, whereas Jorge Linares is listed as 5'8" with a 69-inch reach. So both guys are the same height, but Devin Haney has a 2-inch reach advantage, which could play a factor on fight night, given the way Devin Haney fights. Devin Haney is an orthodox fighter, as is Jorge Linares. Devin Haney is 22 years old, and Jorge Linares is 35 years old. So he's 13 years older than Devin Haney. Now, is that going to play into Devin Haney's hands, you know, being the younger, fresher guy with more in the tank? Or will the experience of Linares come through in this fight? Because the difference in experience in this fight is extremely vast. When you look at Devin Haney's resume, I mean, who would you say his best win is? A shot-worn, basically shot Yuriorkis Gamboa? Zawa Abdulayev? I mean, the resume's really not great. When you compare it to Linares, you know, he's fought guys like Luke Campbell, Lomachenko, Anthony Crolla, Kevin Mitchell, Antonio DeMarco, Rocky Juarez, Juan Carlos Salgado, Oscar Larios. You know, the level of competition that Linares has fought is way beyond the level of competition that Haney's fought. And, you know, that could play into his factor, the whole experience thing. Maybe experience triumphs youth, or maybe the younger man is just too fresh and is always a step ahead in this fight. That's an interesting dynamic in this fight, in my opinion. But, yeah, now the tail of the tape is out of the way, let's break down what I believe both guys should do, how it's going to play out, and who wins. I guess we'll start with the underdog, the challenger, Jorge Linares. To me, Jorge Linares has a bit of a hybrid style. He is relatively aggressive. He's a great combination puncher. He's a good counter puncher. He's like a hybrid of a combination puncher, a boxer puncher, and a counter puncher with a little bit of aggression. And he actually has decent boxing skills on the outside as well. So Linares is quite versatile. He does do a few different things in there. But to me, he's most effective when he's fighting at mid-range, especially when his opponent has held his feet and is there to be hit. When guys sit at that mid-range distance with him, that's when Linares can really have a lot of success with that combination punching and that hand speed. But in this fight, I don't really believe Devin Haney is going to be there at mid-range or the inside all that long. Devin in this fight, in my opinion, is going to play the boxer. That's traditionally his style. He likes to stick and move, pop the jab, keep you off balance, and point score basically. He's a risk-averse, kind of defensive-minded fighter for the most part. And in this fight, it's up to Linares to really force the pace, force the action, and be aggressive. So obviously in this fight, he needs to find a way to close that distance, get Devin stationary, or get him to hold his feet at mid-range so he can let go of his combination punching. The jab in this fight I think is going to be very important for Jorge Linares, as is a nice tight high guard. He needs to be trying to walk Devin Haney down. Linares isn't the greatest pressure fighter, it has to be said. Despite those super quick hands, as he's coming forwards, his feet can be a little bit slow at times, so he needs to quicken those feet up, try to push Devin Haney back with the jab, throw some feints, change the levels, keep Devin Haney guessing, and try and maneuver him to the corner or the ropes so he can let go of those combinations. Whenever he has Haney on the ropes or in the corner, he needs to let his hands go, body and head. Especially body, because Devin does a good job at protecting the head. He's good at rolling punches, he's good at slipping punches. So, you know, maybe the body is a key target for Linares in this fight to slow down those legs and make Devin a bit more stationary. So Linares in this fight is going to need to show a bit more aggression and a bit more relentlessness than he's shown in previous fights. Another thing as well, as we know, Jorge Linares is very quick off the trigger. He's got great hand speed, but he's also very good at picking real quick single counters. So as Linares is trying to apply pressure, I mentioned it earlier, he needs to be changing levels, he needs to be feinting, I think he needs to be touching with that lead hand, and he needs to try and make Devin Haney commit in this fight, and actually try and counterpunch the counterpuncher, try and counterpunch the boxer, you know. I think that lead hand control of Linares, the feint game to try and draw Devin Haney in, could be another area for success in this fight, because like I say, Linares is actually quite a good counterpuncher, especially with the overhand right or the straight right. He's very quick with that shot. If he can draw the jab and then come over the top with the overhand right, I think that could be a good little counter for Linares. But ultimately, you know, Linares has to really leave it all on the table. He needs to be aggressive. He needs to try and draw the lead of Devin Haney, make him commit and make him pay. If Linares follows Devin Haney around the ring, he's just going to get outpointed, in my opinion. So he needs to apply pressure, be a lot more aggressive than he's been in certain fights. And if he can actually make Devin Haney exchange with him, if he can draw the lead of Devin Haney, I actually believe Linares can have success in this fight. I mean, go back to watch the Gamboa fight. Yeah, Devin Haney won that fight hands down, basically won all of the rounds, but there was moments when, you know, Gamboa would actually get Haney to commit, and Gamboa was actually tagging him with good single counters. Now, if that's Linares, a bigger guy who can punch harder, who knows what could happen. But I certainly believe there are openings there for Linares, but in this fight with Haney, he's going to have to create those openings himself, more so than when he was fighting the likes of Anthony Crolla or Kevin Mitchell. The openings are there already due to their styles. You know, they're quite aggressive guys, and you know, Linares can piece those guys up. But a cute defensive guy like Devin Haney, he needs to try and create more openings instead of, you know, just letting his opponent do it for him. So yeah, basically in my opinion, when it comes to this fight, basically Linares needs to be an aggressive counterpuncher, you know, and go from there basically. I don't think he can win a straight out boxing match with Devin Haney, so basically yeah, he needs to make Devin Haney commit, tag him, hurt him, and draw him into that sort of fight. But as for Devin Haney, the favourite, the champion, to me, he needs to do what he does best. He's got great legs, he's got a lovely jab, good straight puncher, and all in all, he's a good mover with good athletic ability, quick feet, quick hands, nice reactions. He's just a real good outboxer with a lot of talent in my opinion. And first and foremost, he needs to make Jorge Linares chase the fight. Don't engage him in what he wants. Don't hold those feet, don't trade. Devin needs to stick behind the jab, utilise that lateral movement, and going both ways by the way, because either or, Linares has a great left hook and he's got a great right hand as well. So utilise that lateral movement, go both ways so you keep Linares guessing, keep Linares off balance, keep Linares at arm's length, and basically he needs to make it a boxing match. And as this fight goes on, as you're winning the rounds, I'm assuming Haney's going to win the early rounds in this fight. Providing that happens, theoretically Linares is going to get more desperate as this fight goes on. And if that is the case, as the fight does go on, don't just rely on the jab, don't just rely on the movement. Hold your feet for a split second, maybe throw a feint, get Linares to come in, half step back and then utilise that pull counter right hand to try and really discourage Linares from being ultra aggressive in the second half of this fight, because that's when Linares will start to get desperate as he's losing rounds as this fight goes on. You know, he's going to get more desperate, try and use that aggression, that forward momentum against him and walk him into that pull counter right hand. That's one of Devin Haney's best shots in my opinion. I think he delivers it really well. And I certainly think Linares can actually be walked onto that shot. When Linares is applying pressure, he does have a habit of actually coming in quite square, to be honest. And I think that's a recipe for disaster against a well-timed pull counter from Devin Haney. Who knows, maybe it could even result in a knockdown or something like that. But ultimately, Devin Haney, I think, needs to start this fight safety first, box behind the jab, utilise that movement, and as the fight goes on, that's when you look at starting to not necessarily be more aggressive, but hold your feet for a split second and try and walk Linares into hard counters. One thing we need to talk about when it comes to Devin Haney is, obviously he's a young guy, he's talented, but so far his performances in the ring haven't exactly got fans super excited. Everybody who's beaten Linares has knocked him out, so there's a bit of pressure on Devin Haney to actually look good in this fight, especially considering his last performance against Gamboa. He couldn't get rid of Gamboa, a guy who's been stopped numerous times and who was a lot smaller. So I think in this fight it's also important that Devin Haney is seen to be at least trying to put Linares in his place and at least trying to be somewhat authoritative with his shots at some point in this fight. So I want to see Devin try to hurt Linares as this fight goes on. I do want to see Devin try to really force the issue as it gets later, and I think that's important for his stock and his marketability, to tell you the truth. You know, I think coasting this fight to a 12-round UD, while it's a decent win, I don't think necessarily it's going to do him any favours in the box office or getting big fights. So, yeah, ultimately there is pressure on Devin Haney to look good in this fight and actually impress people, and I think that does need to be in the back of his mind. Not to the point where he's making silly mistakes and taking silly risks, but at the same time he needs to try and put a stamp on this fight, you know, a real conclusive sort of victory. So yeah, there's pressure on Devin Haney. Linares has nothing to lose, so he's going to be a dangerous opponent. I'm looking forward to this fight. I think it's the perfect fight for Devin Haney at this stage of his career. Obviously, he's got that world title. A lot of people don't think that belt has legitimacy right now due to the way he won it. I think beating Linares in good fashion would give Haney a bit more credibility amongst hardcore boxing fans, because right now, a lot of fans really hold that against him in regards to how he won that title. Whether that's right or wrong is irrelevant. That's what a lot of the feeling is around Devin Haney, and I think a good win here will go some way of actually alleviating that. But yeah, all in all, I'm looking forward to it. But you guys want my official prediction, so I've got my strongest hunch in this fight is that Devin Haney wins a UD relatively wide. I wouldn't be shocked if he actually drops Jorge Linares as he's getting over eager late on. So yeah, I've got Devin Haney by a UD. I'd like to see Devin Haney really make a statement and maybe get a stoppage, but I've got a feeling it's going to be a UD. So yeah, share your thoughts below. It's been your guy Delboy. Peace.